I think the biggest difference in explaining like a single stem tomato where you prune off every sucker versus like a weave is that when you have a lot of suckers growing like you do in the weave, the plants don't get as tall. Like because they have so much more branching, they're not sending all their energy vertically. And so you could end up with a indeterminate tomato that grows for the whole season that's only like 8 feet tall.
We're back here on the beat, Jacques.
Yes.
It's May.
It's beautiful.
It is. There's bees buzzing on all the nasturtiums that I didn't plant this season.
Yeah, same.
We planted a few, but
Yeah, I think I popped a few new ones in because I wanted the purple emperor.
yeah.
Like the purple one. And then there was another one that was like sort of a reddish purple, almost peachy color. And I had to pepper in some of those new guys. But I'm kind of sick of the standard yellows and oranges.
I feel that.
I'm like okay with them. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but I'm here for more purples and reds and orange, like peachy colors, I
There's
guess.
some smaller flowered ones too, which are kind of nice because the yellows and the oranges are very big. Those are the ones you'd see, at least in our area, wild, like out in the hills of San Diego sometimes, or the valley.
Escaped.
Yeah, and it's definitely escaped, like all over the whole hillside.
Yes.
But I think for me, the nasturtiums started on the north side of my greenhouse. Planted them there. Right. Now there's a mushroom bed there, but every year they've come back on that north side, and now they've kind of made it everywhere. Yeah. You know, they're on the apricot tree.
I've never had them.
I've never seen my apricot tree be that engulfed. I actually think I need to cut some of that back a little bit. Yeah. But things are going well. We got out of a pretty rainy period here in San Diego, at least, you know, for us.
What we could get.
And the garden has responded, and so have the weeds.
Yeah, that's true. We are starting to get a lot of weeds. In our area, that's usually mallows. Yeah. I get a lot of those mallows, and I'll get definitely some, the one with the deep root I'm blanking on.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Doesn't matter.
The one that's like an artichoke, but it's not. Thistle.
Thistle, yeah.
And then we also get a lot of nettles, but the nettles are starting to die back. And I think it's like another thing that people seem to push the weeding off, but right now it's really the best time to do it.
It's the best time.
Because as soon as those mallows get woody, they're so hard to pull.
They're really hard.
They go a foot down in the ground.
Yeah, the deep taproot weeds are rough. I find that like when it rains, it's the gift because it's gonna germinate or trigger germination on a lot of these different weed species, and then you can come through and scrape them out. Now, the big thing that happened in my garden over the last month was the Bermuda apocalypse.
Oh yeah, that was actually an amazing apocalypse.
Yeah, from back in the day, I mean, we had Bermuda. Fortunately, there hasn't been a lot of Bermuda in the backyard ever.
Yes, very
There's
fortunate.
some in the back, like by the telephone pole, but the front yard was taken over.
Yes, and why was it taken over?
Right, so it was taken over. I mean, this is my perspective. When I first moved in here, there was a sod scraper that came through, and they just scraped everything off, and they put some basic wood chips on, and then basically that was a breeding ground for whatever weeds wanted to kind of colonize at that point in time, right? So then Bermuda starts to come in. Don't think too much of it. Put a lot of wood chips in the front yard to try to do like a sheet mulch style, like back to Eden style garden. And as far as I can tell, Bermuda needs like a 4-foot smother if you're going to do sheet mulch.
Because we tried 3.
We tried 3 and it didn't really
did
work.
Not work.
Yeah, and that's just unrealistic. I mean, that's completely unrealistic. So what we ended up doing was having some help come through, and we got a little bit of help to come through and mattock out all the Bermuda, which what that means is taking basically a flat side of a pickaxe and cutting off all the root tissue as much as we could. And I'm talking a couple pickup truck full.
It was actually an insane quantity of
biomass. Yeah, which we removed and we ended up sending to the green center at the city because I don't want any. Bermuda can propagate in at least 3 ways.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's not worth even trying to deal with it.
So that's the plan. I mean, the only thing I've seen besides spraying with, something we don't want to spray with.
Yeah.
To kill Bermuda grass is to repeatedly rip it over the course of 2 to 3 years and exhaust it or solarize the soil.
Yeah, the solarized section that we tried by the citrus trees seems to have beat it back pretty hard. We probably have to do a hand pick session now after.
There wasn't as much Bermuda there though. It was more like the grassy
weeds. Ones. Yeah.
Yeah, the more
the bunch grass
Bermuda is
Bermuda.
A grass. Yeah, but the bunching grass that comes up. But anyways, it feels good to have a fresh slate out there, and it kind of opens me up to like what can I do in that area because that's really the orchard area. I'm not I'm not sure that I have any plans yet, but
the cool thing is that area is full of sun. The downside is that it's a pro and a con, but there's a foot of wood chips. So it's going to take a while to get to the dirt or soil. So we'd have to move off some wood chips. But I like the idea of doing like big rows there. Because we used to do that in the experiment garden. Yeah. Like if we wanted to grow a corn maze, we would put it there. But now we have dedicated experiments going. And we could do a little bit of that out front. I don't know if you like the look idea.
I don't mind the look. If I had a big corn maze, because what I really loved a couple years back is we did that corn maze. And I would say we were decent at growing corn back then, but we weren't as good as we are now. And so I think we could have better germination on the maize. Yeah. Because what we ended up doing was using one of those sprayers, the oscillating sprinklers that sprinkled from the center out. Yeah. And so the germination on the outer areas of the maze, it wasn't as good. And so, it just wasn't the perfect maze. But anyways, I do want a space for bigger grows because the test garden is now the test garden. Yeah. And that kind of gets us to what we're growing right now. It's really tomato, pepper season. So most of that stuff is either in the ground or going to be in the ground, especially if you're watching. It's probably time, no matter where you live, to get that in the ground.
It's pretty much a clear time to get all those things in the ground. Yeah. So I don't know if you're trying anything different this year. I am adapting from the experiments we have run to now only pot up, like whenever I plant a tomato, I'll only bury it deeply in a container. Like if I'm potting up into new things, but when I put it in the ground, I'm not gonna go deep. Yeah. I've decided it's not worth the effort. So I'm gonna try actually laying down some of my tomatoes on their side and do surface planting, or maybe like an inch or two deep.
Like we found in our experiment, right?
And I think that's going to be a new thing for me. Usually I used to try to go as deep as I possibly can. And there might still be some merit to that later in the season when they're looking for water, but I feel like the roots are gonna go down anyway.
The bury deep thing, we tested, obviously it's just one test, but we did find that burying it on its side weirdly was the best for root development. And your insight made sense, where it's the soil temperature is warmer, of course, the further up you are, and that would spur on root development. Seems like it did. And then at the same time, the one that was transplanted at soil surface, so no burying in any fashion, it was fine. You know what I mean? It was fine. And I think it kind of speaks to the whole majoring in the minors type thing in gardening, right? So like, am I going to bury it deep? I'm going to bury it on the side at an angle, upside down, whatever, and it's like, okay, cool, you can do that. But then you don't even have any fertilization schedule for your tomatoes for the season. Right. For indeterminate. A bigger impact. It's like, of course that's going to have more impact, or you don't have it on a regular watering schedule, or whatever the case might be. And so I think focusing on that kind of stuff is far more important, but it is fun to play with these different ideas. Yeah. And then I don't know, I still haven't actually decided how I'm going to be trellising my tomatoes this year, because I have a lot in the ground now, but I'm always waiting a little bit too long to get my trellis in. Yeah. I will probably end up doing a large amount of Florida weaves because that seems to work well for me. But I also really like the net setup. So what I did in the past is I got a flat trellis, like a post with a board across it, and then I ran a net across that entire thing. And then tomatoes just grow in and out of that net. Yeah. So that was kind of nice because it was a little bit of a combination of the weave and almost like a single stem, except that there's many stems. Yeah. That made it a little bit easier for me to manage than having to like tie up. I don't know if you have any thoughts on if you're trying to do anything different this year. Well, I've kind of thought of like a hybrid method. Maybe it's similar to yours, but so I have my, my standard style string up trellis for single stemming, right? Which I do like if you don't run into any issues, right? Because if it's a single stem and you start getting, the tip starts to die off because of whatever reason, then it's really kind of done and your yield drops really low. So I was thinking in Florida weave style, which I haven't done in a couple years. You've done one, I think, almost every year. Yeah. I kind of want to go back to a weave, and I'm thinking keeping the bottom 2-3 feet nice and tidy, nice and clean, and then just letting the rest go, but growing indeterminates. Yeah. Right? So that you could really have like a 5 to 10 foot wall at some point of those.
That's my goal.
Kind of let them bleed together. So I don't know. Something about that idea I really like, and I think I can do it on my back trellis that I've done most of that. So anyways, that's what I'm thinking for my tomatoes. Yeah. And my sauce tomatoes, probably just going to go in a different area of the garden. And I'll have two sort of zones.
Yeah.
But I am hoping I get more tomatoes than I did last year. Last year was a lighter year for me because all my single stems, they did fine. Like they didn't underperform like crazy. They weren't like bangers, you know?
Yeah. I'll say the one thing I really like about the Florida weave is I do basically what you described is I will, first of all, remove anything on the first foot. And then after that, I will start to remove some amount of suckers. Once it gets to like 3 to 4 feet, I walk away.
Yeah.
I don't even try to tame the beast. And what I really like about it is that the tomatoes do sort of cross over into each other and start blending.
Yeah.
And the ones that do really well will take over. The ones that didn't do that well or are underperforming, I could just chop out.
Let them go.
And I could just let the ones that dominate continue to dominate through the end of the season. And I think the biggest difference in explaining like a single stem tomato where you prune off every sucker versus like a weave is that when you have a lot of suckers growing like you do in the weave, is that the plants don't get as tall. Like because they have so much more branching, they're not sending all their energy vertically. And so you could end up with a indeterminate tomato that grows for the whole season that's only like 8 feet tall. But it has a lot of 8-foot tall branches.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you basically get
you get more fruit overall.
One way to think about the Florida weave is you're espaliering a tomato.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
You're doing an espalier tomato tree in a sense.
Yeah. And then otherwise for peppers, it's one of the most beautiful things is that I almost always just do a single stake or something like that. And I don't bother with much else.
Yeah.
And I am going to be doing probably close planting. And one thing I want to experiment with this year, and maybe we can even do an experiment on it, is the use of shade cloth with peppers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be pretty interesting. I think peppers, the thing I liked about your peppers a couple years back, and it was 2 seasons ago, is you did a frost cover.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that was last year. You did a frost cover over them, I would say right about now.
Yeah.
To speed them up a little bit because they were a little slow.
Yeah, you never know in this time of spring whether it's going to be cold or hot.
So you basically said, I'm going to make it a little bit hotter by throwing some frost cover on, which of course in sunny environments would make it a little bit warmer underneath there most of the time. Like about 15 degrees or so, something like that. Which is crazy how plants will respond. Like these heat-loving crops, if you can get that soil temperature up a bit, it's like night and day difference.
Yeah, they were
in their
growing
growth.
like twice as fast.
Twice as fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like an eggplant would benefit, an okra would benefit from that. I almost think like you could get, because I've had a couple good okra years here, but
I think I've had one.
You know,
it makes me sad.
You could grow that whole thing under something that boosts the temp just a touch, right? And then you got a crop that you wouldn't otherwise.
One of the kind of low tech ways I've done that in the past is by actually mulching the beds with compost.
Yeah, because it's hot.
Exactly. Since the compost is dark, like I am sacrificing the quote unquote life inside the compost because it's getting baked essentially.
Yeah.
But it's still organic matter and it's still heating up the soil, at least at the root level.
Yeah.
And that makes a really big difference as well. Yeah. And it doesn't involve like that much like tech or anything special. But this year, I'm also going to be trying really hard to work on water saving in the garden.
Yeah, because our rates went up.
Yeah, our rates have gone up. It was a drier year, like definitely the driest year. And so I am going to be experimenting with a lot more mulching, like mulching depths. And I'm going to be experimenting with like how densely I plant stuff to kind of add to the shade element. And there's a few other things I want to do, like using more oyas.
Oh, you can use more oyas?
Yeah,
okay.
At least in certain areas.
Yeah.
And beyond that, like there are a couple other ideas I have that I'm still thinking about. But it is something I want to think about more often. Like even trying to make like these self-irrigated planters and things like that.
Because your whole garden, you've got it on drip irrigation, right? For the most part?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you combine that and maybe calibrating your timings a little bit with better mulching, even just those two alone, you'd be able to cut your water significantly, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, because with
just stopping evaporation.
6 inches of mulch, let's say.
Yeah, that would be the dream.
6 inches of light colored mulch or something like that, like you would be needing to water once a week for almost anything.
And what I found too is mulching my pathways. I used to just leave them as dirt because it made it easier to maintain the garden in a sense.
Yeah.
But now I've been doing wood chips. And that just keeps the overall moisture of the garden a little bit higher too. Because there's less opportunity for evaporation, I guess.
Yeah. Well, because if you think about it, like if a pathway is bare dirt and the bed next to it is covered with something, compost or mulch, and you're losing a lot of water out of, because capillary action is going to pull water from wet to dry, which it's in a way can pull water towards the pathways where it would evaporate.
Yep.
So if you have good mulch on the whole thing, then that's just less likely to happen.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those battles because when you use drip irrigation, like it's only wet where the drip is.
Yeah.
Right, and some amount of like a little bit of spread. Mm-hmm. So protecting all that is definitely a big part of my goal this year. But other than that, like I've been actually having a hard time trying to remember what other summer things I grow. Because I don't know, you saw my greenhouse.
Yeah.
I think I have...
The greenhouse is crammed right now.
I must have over 100 pepper plants in there.
Yeah.
And I've got well over 30 tomatoes.
They all look good though.
Yeah, they do look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to save as many as I can to give away like at a seed swap. But other than that, I forgot to start eggplants, so those are a little behind. I have literally no idea where I'm gonna put corn right now. I don't have like a good block for it.
I actually don't either, you know. Well, I'm at the point, as you can see if you're watching the video version of the podcast, and if you're not, I encourage you to go check it out. It's at the Beet Podcast on YouTube. I have a lot of stuff in the garden right now. I mean, it's really going well. This border flower planting we've done, I think it might be time to, maybe not quite yet, but it might be time to kind of even out the densities of it, because there's a lot of borage, there's a lot of nasturtiums, calendulates, stuff like that, but it's creeping pretty far into the actual bed now.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the beets. The beets are a forest, and they're massive, and so I might need to do some harvesting out. So I thought I didn't have space, but the truth is, if I do a little bit of harvesting, I will have some space.
Oh yeah.
And then the onions I had planted in, I think, November, they'll probably be ready to get out soonish, maybe in a month or so.
Yeah, probably.
And that means I could put in another summer crop. And I do love eating corn, and I do want corn. And so, man, it's either I put it in the front of the backyard, but maybe I'll do it in both and do 2 different varieties, because of course you can't plant 2 different varieties of corn next to one another.
Yeah, I know. And it's one of those things where I have so much garlic this year that I have to just leave that in the ground until it's done.
Until it's done.
So, like,
otherwise,
I can't like, the interesting thing that I noticed this year is that we do this normally every year, but whenever we plant garlic, we put it in the fridge first for like a month, usually if we can pull it off, to do the vernalization so it could get that cold experience and grow well here in San Diego as a hardneck, which usually wants cold weather. And what I noticed is that all of my hardneck garlic is right now producing scapes.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
it's
usually
early.
That's like June, right? So now it's like right before May, and it's producing its scapes. That means I'll be able to harvest my hardneck garlic sometime in May, which to me is like really exciting.
That's exciting,
because it opens up a bed.
In a way, it's exciting, and it's almost a little unfortunate because the hardneck stores a bit less well.
Yeah,
so you'll just have to make sure that you.
Oh, I'm gonna eat it.
I mean, Jacques has no problem eating it with the family that you've got. It's not too hard to clear through.
Garlic heads.
But I've got more garlic than I think I've ever planted either. I mean, we have a bunch we planted in an 8x4 up in the front. I would say that's about 100 plus heads.
Yep.
And in the back, we have an experiment running, planting garlic at different depths and spacings, seeing what happens. We even planted a whole head of garlic just to see if...
That one I'm very curious about.
And it looks healthy as the thing.
It does. It looks really good.
I have this weird feeling that you're going to pull a ton of bulbs out of one hole.
I feel like it's either going to be a bunch of massive cloves stuck together that never differentiated, or it's going to be a bunch of like smaller bulbs.
Imagine if it's a bunch of smaller heads of garlic.
That'd be pretty sweet.
I mean, that would be shocking to me.
It would be shocking.
I think you're probably right.
It might be a hack.
It might be a hack. I think you're probably right. The most likely thing is when the garlic forms, before they differentiate into individuated cloves.
Yeah.
It's sort of like one big garlic clove. You might be right that that's what happens, but who knows? I mean,
if that's what happens, then I'll probably try to do that more often.
Yeah, because it's still
it's easier to peel.
It's way easier to peel. It's technically still edible.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if the flavor is different. Maybe we'll do a clove comparison or something. But not only that, there's probably another 200 heads planted around it just because we had extra.
Yeah, that's
And there's
true.
also some right behind me as well.
Oh yeah, actually, you might have more garlic than me.
I might. I mean,
I thought I was crazy with 400.
There's 3 separate areas with at least 100, 150.
Yeah, there's at least 200 there. So
at least 200.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
A lot of mine though are soft neck, I think, in the bulk areas, which means that I will be able to store that for a lot longer.
Yeah, at least 6 months.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the garlic this year. I'm actually excited for the onions. I've got it's weird. Like every year something doesn't go as well. Carrots haven't gone as well for me this year.
Yeah, I think
you didn't even plant them, did you?
I literally forgot to plant them, and then I planted like 3 pathetic 4-foot rows like a few months ago. Like after the winter already passed, I don't even get to enjoy the sweet carrots that are growing through the cold period.
Yeah.
But I'll probably get a few.
And how are they doing so far?
They didn't do that well, honestly. The germination, I was counting on rain. We didn't get a lot of rain, and I just missed the window.
Yeah, I had spotty germination on mine, and then it's like you have spotty germination long enough so you re-sow a little bit to try to clear it up. Then you might forget. And then you get the germination, and then you forget to thin. So it's like almost the comedy of errors there, tragedy of errors. I don't know what the phrase is, but either way, I mean, I'll have some carrots. But last year, man, I had probably a 60-foot row, 60-foot rows.
And they were great back there.
And they were like chompers.
Yeah.
You know, Danvers. I think it was mostly Danvers.
Yeah.
Just a really classic
really
variety.
Delicious.
Really tasty, really crisp. And they went through our winter, our cold period, so they were nice and sweet. You know. So it was a good year for carrots. I've dialed back like my turnips, my beets for sure I'm growing, but like radishes and turnips have not been very present for me in the last season or so. I don't know about you.
I haven't really done a lot of radish or turnips, and actually across the board, even beets, something that I do actually enjoy.
You like beets a lot.
Yeah. I haven't really grown that many. I don't know why.
Well, I've got plenty for you. Trust me. I pulled one out in the last podcast.
That's right.
That was
It was bigger than my head,
and that was not even the biggest one in that pile, let alone the whole patch.
Probably even bigger.
You know, the thing that I was not as excited about last year, I was a little bummed about, is I'm a huge potato guy, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And last year, I was excited to grow them, and I did have a good amount of them, but they were just not quite as developed as I would have liked. Some of them got a little green. Some of them got a little eaten up chomped by gophers. This year, that's really changed. So I've got a whole bed of potatoes in ground in the backyard that look
I forgot about that bed.
Picture perfect.
Yes.
Those look picture perfect. Of course, we have our potato experiment that we're running. And then we've also got potatoes, and this I think is a sleeper trick for people who have the space at least. Just take seed potatoes, 2-3 inch potatoes, and then just kind of bury them in random spots in your yard. It won't be hard to tell when they're up because they're gonna, potatoes are so distinctive. Once you see what the leaf pattern looks like, you'll just have a nice little foliage for a while, and then eventually get to dig it up, and you've got some nice potatoes. Yeah,
so. Actually, you're gonna be kind of drowning in garlic and potatoes, which is two things I'd love to drown in.
That's happy days for me. I'd love to be.
I didn't think about how well you engineered those.
Yeah.
Because you got two of the most delicious staples, at least in my household.
Yeah.
And the other, actually, I'm thinking about the other staples that we like to eat is brassicas. And this year's been a little bit weird for me. I don't know what your experience was, but it started off really nicely. And then I feel like all of my brassicas bolted earlier than usual. And I guess it's been a little bit warmer than it.
It's warm right now.
Yeah, it is warm right now. And I'm at the point now where I was hoping to push some brassicas into summer to play with it. And now I'm like, I don't think it's going to be worth it. I might pull out all of my brassicas.
Whenever you were saying that a couple episodes ago, I was like, I don't know why he's trying to grow brassicas in the summer,
Yeah.
It's just it's too aggressive with our climate, but look, you like them.
Yeah.
So, but I think one way to play it could be in the future is grow them all through our cool climate, which for most people is winter, but for us, it's just our cooler climate, But regardless, if you're listening, just adjust to your own climate. And then I think you could pickle a lot of them, like pickled broccoli heads and cauliflower heads and stuff. To me, that's a really tasty treat.
Yeah.
And
cauliflower pickles are my favorite.
Like tight, small-headed cauliflower pickles are really, really nice.
Yeah.
Isn't there like that plus like onions and peppers or something is like... is it jardiniere?
Yeah.
Is that what...
Yeah.
Is that made of cauliflower?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. At least it usually has it.
Yeah. So pickling up stuff that you struggle to grow but like to enjoy is a good way to do it. So just grow way more than you think. Grow enough you'd want to eat in that season, and then enough to pickle for whatever the timeline that you want to enjoy.
Probably the right way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than force it,
Yeah. I'll probably still force it because I'm stubborn.
We learn every time, like the banana I've been growing or some of these fruit trees. It's like forcing versus just like picking a variety that works or respecting the plant and the way it wants to grow. Speaking of fruit, my loquat tree I've never seen it this full in my life.
It is actually super, super loaded.
It's
and the
super
interesting thing
loaded.
about it is that it's ripening in a really wide window.
Yeah.
Like you had ripe ones weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there's green ones that are still developing today.
Yeah, I think it's just
So it's a long fruit window.
I think it's the sheer mass of them this year, because I didn't prune it last season, which was a first. I prune it almost every year. That year I didn't prune it. So now it's huge. I mean, there's loquats spilling over into the backyard, which is unheard of. But I think, I really want to say like 3-4 years is your scale up for a fruit tree orchard. Right. That's really when you start to see the yields if you've done it right. Like the citrus hedge now.
You had a ton of citrus.
Oh
this
man,
year.
it's almost 6 feet tall now.
Yeah.
Across all. And anyone who wants to do any sort of like fruit tree hedge, it doesn't have to be citrus. It could be stone fruits or apples or pears or plums or cherries or pomegranates, whatever. Well, pomegranates may be a little different, but you can put it pretty tight together. But the thing that I think developed it the most is adequate water, because the areas that didn't get enough water. They're
competing more too.
Yeah, they're competing a lot more. And trees in general need a lot of water. But I would say if you want to grow it as this sort of manicured hedge style or keep it under control in general, cut the tallest trees, prune those down in the summer, down to the height of the smallest tree.
Right, summer prune.
You'll force it to catch up, basically. Not only are you artificially stunting the more aggressively growing trees, but you're also giving typically more resources and more light access to the smaller tree. Right. So like the classic example is I have a gold nugget mandarin tree that is going crazy, and it's right next to a yuzu that is unfortunately placed, I would say. It's in the back corner, so it wouldn't get enough sun anyway.
Doesn't get as much morning light.
Morning light is missing, yeah. So giving it that little kind of booster pack of more resources, more light, it's finally starting to catch up. And it'll never be, as lush, but that's really helped. And now, it's finally doing the thing I dreamed of, which would be blocking that view of the other homes.
Yeah, it is actually doing a really good job of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, I need to get some more citrus in the ground. I have a few in containers. You actually gave me one of the Valencias in a container. That thing, it did really well. Like right now, it still has over a dozen fruit on it in the first year after being in a pot, maybe like 20. And it's actually now setting all of its new fruit for the following year.
Wow.
Because the Valencia is kind of weird. When I researched it a little bit, is that you often will harvest them in the summertime because they have a long ripening window, or at least the option to ripen them that long. So it's really weird to see like a bunch of new fruit forming as the old one still hasn't been harvested.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm most looking forward to is, of course, to try the pear from the trees that we planted, to try the new peaches in my garden, the plums, and actually to see if I get any apples. I don't know if I will, because I tried planting high chill hour apples on purpose, and this year was the warmest.
Another forcing.
I'm a forcer.
Forcing play.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like I don't have that much space, and I'm giving it up on long-term
with fruit trees.
goals.
That to me doesn't make as much sense. But hey, we all live our own truths,
Hey, Tom Spellman said that he was sure I would get fruit here.
Yeah. So if Tom Spellman, the godfather of fruit trees, says it, then I believe it.
That's the only reason I even risked it.
Yeah. I mean, I should have a good amount of apples this year. Probably my first year to have a good amount.
Yeah.
I've only had like 5 to 7 apples. That tree for some reason is just slower. But Tom actually, when he was down, helped me understand how to prune it better. And after we pruned it better and fertilized it a bit, it really started to take off. And I know that there's at least a dozen apples forming right now, which is great. And I'm hoping I get my first cherry of my life, as well as my first pear of my life. If I get a pear or cherry, fantastic.
I know. I'm definitely letting a pear form. I don't care.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm not thinning it.
I'm not going to thin it off. The thing, when you talk about fruit trees, I think a lot of people get discouraged because they're like, well, I can't grow a fruit tree because either my climate doesn't support it or I'm in too small a space. There's a whole world of containerized fruit trees as well as varieties.
Yeah.
So like good rule of thumb is to just look up your frost date and look up how, well, it's not so much your frost date, it's your average annual minimum temperature.
Right.
And find the varieties within the fruit that you want that can support that. Like, for example, if you're a citrus person, you may not be able to grow a, call it like a standard navel orange, right, in Minnesota. But there are a few citrus that you could pull off, like the Meiwa or Nagami kumquats are hardy to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So even in a really cold climate, it might actually get below 10, but then add the container aspect and add some sort of frost blanket aspect.
I see.
Right? Or
so you could extend and push that season.
Yeah, planting it next to a warm wall or something like that. And you can actually get away with it. I've seen people grow citrus in a lot colder climates than, of course, the one we're in.
Yeah, I'll actually also add that my container fruit trees have done really well. As I mentioned, I have a ton of fruit on the Valencia. I have a Bear's lime that produces more limes than I could even know what to do. Like your tree has like 200, mine has like 50, and that's still more limes than I know what to do with.
Yeah, it's a lot of limes.
And I've had persimmons in 15-gallon pots do well. My apple is in a 15-gallon pot, does well. I have a loquat that I grew from a 4-inch seedling that we actually bought together like 4 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that.
We went up to Exotica Nursery up in North County, San Diego. And I've been babying it, potted it up to 15-gallon container, and this year it actually set fruit. So you could definitely still get fruit, especially if you don't need like an insane quantity. The container is actually a nice option because it won't drown you in fruit, but you'll still get to savor and eat that delicious fruit.
That's the way I think about it. Like if I was to move, I guess, to a place where it'd be harder to grow a wider variety of fruit, I would still probably grow stuff in 25-gallon containers and be content getting a few a year just for the satisfaction of the grow. Similar with like an apple in my climate, like I'll never probably get, you know, what I see in Michigan or something, right? Or Vermont or whatever. Yeah. But if I get 24 apples a year, that's great. I mean, I'm very pleased with that with all the other stuff that I've got.
Yeah, because it's all about variety, right?
Yeah, it's all about variety, and then it's just the love of the grow. Like I want to say I grew an apple.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge.
That's part of it, right?
Like I want to say I grew a high chill hour apple where I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's more
and
crazy.
Like no person on earth actually cares.
Nobody cares.
Like you go out to the nurse, you know, you rock up to like some baseball game, you know, like talking to the guy next to you, like, you know, by the way, I've grown a high chill hour apple in a warm climate.
Fuji's Pink Lady.
And he's like, deal. What?
He's like, yeah, they're $2 a pound at the grocery store.
Yeah, he's like, okay, who is this guy? And why are you wearing a straw hat at the baseball stadium? But anyways, May's going to be exciting. This is going to be a productive year, I think.
Yes.
And if you are not checked out to the YouTube version of this show, guys, check it out. It's at the Beet Podcast. We're actually going to be launching new podcasts soon. Jacques, you may have your own show. Yeah. Which is exciting. Secret. Keep that secret. And some of you listening might even be talking to Jacques on that show. Oh. Little teaser of the format. And then we have another show that might be coming out soon. So more audio stuff coming to you so you can listen to our dulcet tones as you get in the garden. We'll see you on the next video, guys. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.